And with the map being what it is, we might just have a longer game. Not because they intend to, just the course of PvP will play out to maybe disruptors, maybe carriers, who knows. But I know that this person is in the bottom left, and that person is Harstem.
And I know that this person is in the top right, and that person is DnS.
Yeah. The only two facts the casters are going to get right tonight. Am I right, cats?
Hells yeah. Well, there's a gas here. Facts. Double gas on either side.
Fact.
Yeah. There's the standings, of course, on your screen. And like you can see, Harstem is at the brink of not being safe. And that match against Mana is going to be mega important. He is really going to want to take this one, though. And then he will have a little bit of buffer at least. And I think map score matters over head-to-head, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so I guess a 2-0 here would be extremely important for Harstem if he can get it, but any sort of a victory will also lengthen his map advantage against Mana.
Right, yes, we are looking at that one for now. Things can change in the future. I mean, Uthermal probably not solid at that top 2, but again, everything's going to be wrapping up very soon. Mm-hmm. Right now, very important match tomorrow. Some of them aren't as important, to be honest, but some of them are very important. Tomorrow might actually be who decides who gets 5th and who gets 4th, as I think someone accurately did point out in the Reddit thread that, Group A, for instance, which this is Group C, but Group A, it's like 4 people are already out officially.
Yeah.
So we don't need to really play that one out as much. But now for this group, absolutely, it is very close between 4th and 5th. And we know that 4 is actually what gets you into those playoffs, which both players have been before, I do believe, and Harstem more reliably so. That would be his expectation for himself. And we do have actually a bit of a cheesy opening, but a proxy Stargate really isn't the worst thing in a PvP.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty good here. DnS is scouting pretty much everywhere, so he might end up finding this, and that would be a very important find. It looks like he is cute just to find this, and he will. Good job scouting everywhere pretty much from DnS. Harstem now with a decision of what to do. Probably still has to commit to the Oracle.
Still has a lot of potential. The Oracle, if it gets out, he's just going to hover around and be a real bother, so as long as it's not killed in the process, or the pylon isn't depowered, 1 Oracle is still a nuisance. 2 Oracles, obviously preferred. This is kind of cute. So DnS opened up with a Stalker Sentry then. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Dude, are those hallucinations counting as the Stalkers on the Units tab? No, they're in the main. Okay. I was so confused.
That would have been weird, yeah.
Yeah, that would have been weird. Anyways. But it was kind of cute to use this in case Harstem tried to defend it. Harstem was not trying to defend it, actually, so not really a big deal there. And the Oracle does swoop in, try and get some damage. 3 probes, but it's alive, so that's most important.
Yeah, it's going to be 3 probes and it's going to be alive, but like you said, there's no opportunity for a second Oracle, which really threatens that mineral line later on. That said, DnS has not opted to make a shield battery, instead just relied on the 2 Stalkers that he left back at home to kind of account for this Oracle. But right now, I feel like a shield battery in the main would pretty much allow him and free him to go out on the map, because you know that there's only going to be the one Oracle out on the map, right? Whereas normally you have to look for the second Oracle follow-up. This time around, you don't have to. So I understand how DnS also thinks, okay, without 2 Oracles, I can get away without making the shield battery. But the shield battery is just so effective against the 1, because then it just can't kill probes.
Right.
Okay.
Usually it makes it easier to deal with it, but this is a bit surprising. I don't think Harstem was necessarily expecting to be dove on, but that's what happens. He loses the Stalker. The shield battery couldn't quite outpace the amount of Stalker shots. Now the Adepts are going down as well. Definitely higher target priority is the Stalker. The probe, I love the probe trying to get on the action as well. It's a bit feisty, really. If there's too few units to protect the shield battery, and then the shield battery goes down, like you're warping in maybe on the high ground, because you can't warp in into the face of Stalkers. This actually can snowball. This can snowball huge, but as it is, I think Harstem has enough. Now the trick is making sure he has something blocking that high ground, which he does currently have the probes. The Adepts don't go the right direction anyways, so that's easy peasy.
Yeah, that was a little strange. I mean, regardless, there is a probe there available. The shield battery did run out of energy, but overcharge is now utilized. So DnS might try again here. 4 Stalkers is a weird number, though, as it's not even going to be able to 2-shot Stalkers, even if the shield battery wasn't present there. So You need at this point you need like 6 or 7 to start two-shotting those stalkers, because you need 10 for the one shot, right? And that means with the healing of the shield battery, there's going to be a little bit more buffer. So DnS is I think, rightfully going to abandon this plan instead start going for Dark Shrine, not looking for that snowball no more.
And Dark Shrine is actually really quite clever. Harstem does have an Oracle, obviously, right? So that's going to have the ability to scout the Dark Shrine, sure, technically, but the Oracle might not actually be able to get back into the main base in that way. And then it also has Revelation, right? So it's not going to be an instant GG scenario for Harstem if the DPs do actually get out. But the reason I like the Dark Shrine isn't just that DnS is trying to be sneaky. It's that he knows that there's not a hallucination available. He knows that everything that Harstem worked in was not sentries, right? So that is kind of cool. And I guess Harstem, it almost looked like he was going to go into the high ground. But again, Oracle not near, no hallucination, can't blink up to the main. So he will not know about the Dark Shrine 100%. He might be a little suspicious of it, and he probably gets out an observer first with this Robo. But there's still that potential, huge potential, in fact, that the Dark Templars sneak in and do, cool. 6 probes with the damage.
Yeah, at the same time, 6 probes of damage is what the Oracle accomplished with this little move out from DnS. He is tempted to move out because Harstem was clearing one pylon, but as soon as Harstem starts clearing the pylon, he knows that DnS is going to react, and that's when he jumps in as fast as possible into the natural base. So leaves a very small window of time for DnS to react. However, he might be able to catch the stalkers on the way back. Blink forward from Harstem. Still, one stalker will get caught in the back, and I'm surprised that DnS didn't pursue with his own blink. I feel like he could have at least killed one more stalker, but I guess just killing the one on the tail end and sieging this Nexus is good enough in his mind.
Yeah. Don't want to accidentally run into more stalkers, maybe a shield battery's already done type of situation. This is a big deal, not just because as is, the stalkers were looking to get that Nexus. No shield battery and the Nexus wasn't done. It also was a huge distraction. The DTs actually did get into the natural base without Harstem noticing them. One into the main as well. And that is going to do, I think, enough damage to warrant the DTs. Good attempt at a recall. It will be successful too.
Yeah.
But I think it's only really good because it was combined with the Nexus cancel, right? If that was the only thing that happened and the Nexus is still finishing as I'm speaking, I think, Harstem's only down 1 or 2 probes, but his Nexus is faster. It's actually going to level out. But with the Wombo combo there, DnS has given himself a decent advantage.
Yeah, that was actually a pretty cool and interesting move from DnS. We were talking about how cautious he was, not blinking forward, and then he actually just blinks right on top of the Nexus, which should theoretically speed up the speed at which he takes it down, because the shot is not going to have to fully travel to the Nexus to do its damage. So just trying to catch Harstem a little bit of guard with that last shot, just being a little bit faster from his stalkers. I think that Harstem did get the cancel off, but still cool moves from DnS, and Harstem does take a little bit more damage than he would have liked from the 3-pronged harass.
Yeah, exactly. Even a little bit of awkwardness in the main base of Harstem where he's rallying his probes. I mean, it offsets you a little bit, and that offset can suddenly snowball if you're not, good at recovering mentally, that is. I think Harstem is actually totally fine. He corrects his probes. He's going to catch up on probes eventually, and he's actually even choosing to go and kind of almost dive towards the robotics bay. It is pretty quick. There's not even a specific time in PvP. You can't just look at the clock and say, well, time for disruptors. It really is about the pacing of the game and how it's been going so far, right? But this would be quick. A lot of the time we see maybe 3-base saturation for disruptors would be, okay. But then I'd say a lot of other times we just see 3-base committing to a bunch of gateway units, and then maybe afterwards disruptors. Another sign that it's early is that it's with only 1 robo. As we know, it most commonly comes down with 2 and the robotics bay, right? So just pointing out that, yeah, Harstem's going for the disruptors a bit fast, which opens up the opportunity for DnS to notice it and then basically pounce on it. Say, like, okay, you're investing into higher technology, you're investing into, almost one-shot wonders in the form of disruptor. Let's go ahead and overwhelm you with my superior army.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, this map does have the topography to where you can be a little bit safer, right? There's a lot of chokes, so the disruptors do make a lot of sense from Harstem, but it is a lot faster than you would normally expect. He is cutting some corners here relative to his opponent, who has been making all of these units, especially after losing his own third and whatnot, right? Like, he really is a little bit playing with fire regardless of what map it is. So we'll see if he's able to get away with it. If he is, he will be in a pretty good position, and he wasn't in a great position just a couple of minutes ago, so this will be good to stabilize. But DnS is going to test the waters right now. 2 disruptors already out though, Jess.
So DnS isn't really committing all of his resources to this. You know, he's got a robotics bay behind it. He's accidentally getting a dark shrine. That's just habit, right? If it didn't go the way it did in the first 8 minutes, he'd be getting a dark shrine now, you know, in all of his other PvPs. But it just, you know, a +2 even starts up. You know, he's not really committing to this. And I think that is better because I think you're right about the map. There's a couple of choke points that still would do favorably for the disruptors, combo to the fact that there are already shield batteries. It's you know, that covers a decent 20, 30 supply lead even. And DnS at this point doesn't even have an army supply lead, so definitely don't pull the trigger. But scaring him, making sure that Harstem is always a little fearful, and certainly not on your side of the map, I think that's more than fair. You know, just keep your distance away from the disruptors while you build up your own.
Yeah, DnS is gonna research Blink for his DTs. I'm actually curious which Dark Shrine he's using for that.
His new one.
But oh, it's the old one? The
new one.
Oh, okay, nice. nice. So he waited for the new one to complete as well. He probably just didn't find the old one anywhere, like in his main. It's right there.
I know. It's like.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Blink, this is a daring blink forward here from Harstem, but fair enough. He has a lot of stalkers on the other side. The DTs are going to be dropped onto the natural base, and the shield battery overcharge will be spent to save the stalker and the cannon, which is going to take down one of those DTs. In the main, there is no cannon, and so Harstem's going to have to recall. Observer is on site here to catch this DT, but that's only 2 out of 4, I believe. The third one's now walking into the cannon gracefully, and that's nice. And now the Warp Prism will be carrying the last one onto the dead airspace, where it will chill until a better opportunity presents itself.
I really like what DnS did there. You know, he saw Harstem move out even a little bit, and then he just goes into the Warp Prism. And that means that Harstem has to stay at home either a little while longer or does just entirely pull back. So it also gives you that scouting. So DnS says, oh, okay, yeah, it really did pull you all back. So he can take the forward position again, first of all, but then in conjunction with the buying time and the forward position, know that he's relatively safe to get into a Stargate. He's actually kind of in command of this game, even though it doesn't seem like much is happening with these tiny little moves. And if he does outpace Harstem, he does get to a Stargate, he does get to 4 carriers with +1, and Harstem is still thinking, oh no, I'm defending, then DnS might just win the game with that. So at some point, it's really important that Harstem breaks out of almost his own jail. Like, he needs to go on the other side of the map, needs to get some scouting done, or he will suddenly be dealing with a bunch of carriers.
Yeah, the other alternative is to have those disruptors further forward enough that he is getting the first shot, and then it is risky for DnS to engage. But actually, Harstem bouncing after a lot of the disruptor shots have been utilized after. They're all with DnS actually choosing to recall, so he's gonna completely give up on the engagement. And this is a crucial moment for Harstem right now. This is actually a really strong fight, and now a very strong lead for the Dutch.
Absolutely, and that was just. Oh, that was one of the worst moments, I think, for a pro gamer. You know, I kind of have to be critical there. That was a lot of inaction. Yes, he wasn't paying attention, and that is forgivable. Everyone does it, pro gamers as well, so on and so forth. But then afterwards, there was a lot of inaction. And then the action they chose was kind of incorrect. The weird recall, the weird running away. It looked like his hotkey basically didn't have disruptors on it. So he had 4 disruptors, 2 of them get shot down, the next 2 don't do anything at all. So really awkward. Fortunately, DnS takes a series of unfortunate events in stride and still is okay. But, you know, if it wasn't such a good position, if it wasn't such a even game, I suppose, like that would have been disastrous. It is just a matter of time, though. DnS had disruptors being rebuilt, had them back at home, and still is able to invest into the carriers, which would have... That is a little scary, you know? You lose a fight like that, and you might be able to kind of figure it out in your head and say, oh, well, I have 3 at home, so it's okay. But then to still add on these carriers, taking up a ton of supply, a ton of resources, and they take forever to pop out, that is a little bit risky. You're still kind of, you know, pinning your hopes on these disruptors, your backup disruptors almost, to buy more time, which so far so good.
Yeah, good shot. They're going to kill 3 stalkers from Harstem, as DnS is going to try to answer back and clips one of those disruptors with a nice shot of his blink stalkers himself. Gonna have to evacuate this area for now, Harstem, and DnS is nearly maxed up, so like you were saying, he's gonna get another opportunity, and the only advantage that Harstem takes from all of that is a little bit off bank, as well as I guess the faster +3, is that right? Yeah, so he's gonna get faster +3. At the same time, DNS is faster to his Stargate tech and the carrier transition, so the Frenchman is still doing pretty all right here.
I would say the Frenchman is still absolutely winning. Harstem has no idea about the carriers, and that's terrifying, because it's not like he's killing bases and not knowing, so then the carriers have to be used, and he goes, oh, carriers, okay, time to back away and buy time. This is DNS on a completely like casual almost PvP state right now, where he is just defending but still getting all of his bases up, and then also having like the trick up his sleeve. He's got carriers that are about to show themselves. They didn't have to show themselves. They didn't have to be used. They're getting to +2 before it's even figured out.
Oh, no.
Like, whoa, and then this happens.
No.
Oh, this absolutely has to be a trigger for DNS. Go, 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 right? Even without the carriers, but now the carriers show themselves, and Harstem knows that he is in deep, deep trouble. This might look like an even fight so far, where the supplies still stay even, but it absolutely is not. DNS, he might have lost some of his own disruptors too, so he's only at 3 right now, but carriers already built. Like, that's such a long time that Harstem has to buy to get to his own Tempest at this point too, which are going to take forever.
Yeah, he's just starting to work on one single Stargate right now, so it's a long ways away for sure. Let's see if Harstem can kind of buy time by just being active out on the map. The DTs get answered by a huge recall on the side of DNS, so Harstem has to evacuate that area. At the same time, DNS is trying to harass and maybe biting a little bit more than his little army squads can chew, because I think that he does better right now with the full strength of his army. He has a massive army right now with 2 more Tempests, 2 more carriers, and a mothership in production for augmenting that air army. It's gonna be very, very difficult for Harstem to stop. So I love this from Harstem. He has to keep him on his side of the map. He has to do this run-bys with very basic, relatively cheap units while he tries to transition into air himself. +1 for his own air style is gonna finish here, but he is still miles away.
And it's not like he's super, super rich. So if these attacks were not catching DNS so off guard, he could just be losing a bunch of supply and making it even more obvious that DNS should counter. However, he is really catching DNS off guard. DNS was very close to having all attack defense necessary to guard these outside bases, like the outer rim almost, but he didn't quite get there. So if 5th base dies, or rather 6th base dies, that's fine, but then he also lost a decent amount in the natural, and he's still down in supply. Harstem might not be rich as in bank, but he is continuously mining off of 86 probes. So he's really making this style of play work.
Yeah, this is absolutely brilliant. A brilliant set of moves here from Harstem. Just positionally, he was amazing in this little bit. Now, I don't know that he wants to engage the army, though. I feel like you just, as soon as you lose the position, you should just look to run away. But that 1-2 punch into the natural and the other base was excellent, because it makes it so that DNS is completely off position. And let's not forget that recall was on cooldown at that point in time, right? Because DNS kind of freaked out and recalled against the DTs at his most freshest base. It made it so that Harstem hitting the furthest away, least likely to be hit base, because again, like, it's mostly mined out at the natural, etc. Makes DNS react and kind of move his army slowly towards there, and that opens up for the Templars, Dark Templars that Harstem had already prepared and continue to leave in the south to take down the freshest base. So really brilliant maneuvers there from Harstem, and he has gained with that a hefty supply lead, but as far as like army value, he's still actually behind.
It keeps on happening is the thing. If DNS had ever put a stopper on these run-bys and taking damage from them, I would 100% still be on the side of DNS's army winning out. But he hasn't. Like, every single move that Harstem has done has been doing a lot of damage. Even his awkward return just like a minute ago into the carriers, it was awkward for the stalkers, but then his DTs didn't have any detection on them. So they were still doing damage. They even got a disruptor, they got the Nexus, so on and so forth. So everything that Harstem's doing is working out when it feels like it really shouldn't. And as such, he's been slowly just able to pick off enough of the economy and enough of the units. Because I think we actually lost some Tempests. The mothership went down as well. Oh, just a mothership, actually. But, 15 disruptors. Good lord. Okay, so yeah, DNS does not have the perfect army anymore. He has an intimidating army that's in its baby stage, okay? It needs to get some like chronotrons on it and then, grow up, and then maybe be intimidating, but it's just too small.
Yeah, and this is what we were talking about in the situation that Shutdown was in earlier in the day, right? Where if you have the lower tech army, and if you don't want to fight, and you have the more real estate and a much more economy to go around, then the base trade can be the better option, and that's exactly what Harstem is doing. So if he kills this base, he's gonna bring down DNS to basically 0 mining bases, which is obviously gigantic, and then you have a lot of time to answer this army or just eliminate your opponent by killing all of their buildings. So this is pretty great play from Harstem. And yeah, like DNS, it seems just like he should have had enough, and obviously he has enough army to fight whatever Harstem had head on. But I really want to give a lot of credit to Harstem because of the way that he pulled them apart, and he utilized that little timing where the recall was on cooldown, right? Like DNS, what he really needed to do somehow, but it is very difficult, is to get out either units or pylons or observers out on the map to where he could see Harstem coming in advance, because otherwise it's just guessing, and it's like, if I have my army in position for your run by, great, but if I don't, then I'm kind of screwed. So yeah, he was kind of screwed, and I think that's Harstem's good choice also to go into the natural, which is again the least likely and most often least important base to hit.
Yeah, it's
maybe that's a June report moment.
Well, I'm glad you keep on highlighting all the things that Harstem is doing well, because it's really hard not to say that DNS did a lot of things incorrectly, you know? Like, it was definitely two things. It was DNS playing less than perfectly in his position, and Harstem really doing exactly what he should be doing. So just, running around, killing a bunch of things, buying as much time as possible, and making sure to dig into the economy. But it feels like it really shouldn't have been the case. I think even Harstem would agree with that. I think Harstem at one point on the camera, he kind of looked like a little dejected, but he bucked up and he just did his thing. And at the end there, he also looked kind of surprised at himself, right? Like, oh wow, okay, let's go, kind of situation, because it really was a bad spot for Harstem.
For
and
sure.
DNS, if he had maybe even just solidified, just turtled a little bit, say, okay, I only need 5 bases, not 6. Like, I'm not even going to bother protecting that 6th base. Maybe that would have stopped the snowball one of the most important times, and he would have been able to afford maxing out on air and disruptors. But it's like, as soon as he got to a decent count of air army, he lost a lot of his ground and he lost all of his economy, so he couldn't keep adding to it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, aside from just getting vision, I think the other thing that maybe DNS could have done is have a contingency of cannons, for example, in the outermost bases, so that at least you have time to run between them, right? So, but yeah, otherwise, I don't know. It's just such a difficult position. I think Harstem played really well, even in the engagement where it was super awkward and that recall was like super weird from DNS. Harstem also kind of was taking advantage of, like, you used 2 disruptor shots, you have 4 total, blinks in and kills 1 or the 2 possibly that didn't have shots available right away, right? So it kind of forced out some really awkward moves from DNS, but Harstem put on excellent pressure. And yeah, that is the kind of game that would be really cool to just like watch the replay and analyze and learn from all perspectives, because yeah, I thought it was really cool. And you're right. I mean, it takes mistakes from the player that's ahead to make it happen, but also great plays from Kevin to bring himself back. This is a new one on Blackburn, and in the bottom left-hand side for Root Gaming, it is DnS.
In the bottom right, for Shopify Rebellion, he is Harstem. And we go into Blackburn, which is a very interesting PvP map. The Battle of the Stargates, the battle of the mental games a lot of the time, since it is just crying out for a gateway expand. And this time around, Harstem not with a quick enough scout to block the gateway expands, and DNS, or wait, reverse that, and then Harstem not even bothering to probe scout to even try to block anything.
Yeah, for sure. Blackburn should be pretty interesting. That gas block is also cool from DNS. What do you think he's going to try to use that for?
He could actually be aggressive. So first of all, I want to note the reason that Harstem did manage to get that gateway up was that he didn't go for a typical 20 Nexus. He went for an earlier one. So I should definitely amend my statement to make it not put the blame on DNS. DNS would have been able to block a 20 Nexus, but Harstem, he's talked about it in his videos. He knew a quicker one. But yeah, as far as the gas steal, I mean, if DnS wanted to, I mean, he could try and get that Stargate first, then his own Nexus, and then pump out like a Zealot and a Void Ray. That's something that Max Packs used to do. But especially since the Void Ray is more expensive and takes longer to build, I don't think it's viable anymore. So I want to say this would lead to some type of aggressive opening, taking away the gas from a Protoss player, right? Might be making a weakness. I'm not sure it is. Harstem, yeah, he's definitely not going to have as fast of a Stargate, but is there going to be an opening truly for DNS?
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. As a DNS will have a very quick Stargate like we were mentioning, and I guess Stalkers would still suffice, right, on the side of Harstem, and he is going to take the gas at his natural expansion instead, so he's not even going to bother with the gas in his main. And that earlier Nexus makes it so that, yeah, really it's not that big of a deal, it feels like. I mean, gas counts are going to be fairly similar at this point in time. Of course, the Oracle is already on the way for DNS, but Harstem will have a significantly better economy moving into the later stages of the game, already having that Nexus, the extra chrono boost as well, and already with a 2-probe advantage likely to be made a little bit bigger.
I actually really quite like that we are having the Stargate play from Harstem. Besides it being just a change-up of the usual, it also just makes sense with his later gas. This was almost cheeky, but kind of turns around on Harstem a little bit there as he loses a Stalker.
Yeah, attempts at a recall. That was kind of cool. I mean, at least the Oracle had to turn on its pulsar beams for that. So if you're a Harstem fan, maybe that's not the worst thing in the world. The Adept doesn't end up falling. It is not ideal for Harstem. That's what he was looking for at the very least. And the Stalker perfectly timed as well as the Oracle. All of those units spawning within seconds makes it so that Harstem loses a fight that he otherwise would have comfortably won. But he is going to be heading into that faster blink. Will be able to block the Adept from scouting, but at the same time, he's going to get surprised somehow, some way in the main base as DNS rerouted his Oracle to come at an awkward angle, and now trying to go into natural, only loses 2 probes with a fast pull-off and a little bit of mining time, but still a successful poke from DNS.
It's actually kind of cool. So not only does that gas steal delay Harstem's Stargate, if that's what he ended up going for, regardless of it, it would have been later. But it actually provides some scouting in the main, doesn't it? Which I wasn't really thinking of. The Oracle knew the Stalkers had moved away because the gas geyser was able to see it. So that's when he swooped in just before Harstem got a warp in, right? So that was pretty cool. I think Harstem was also aware of it and just thought that he could, you know, get right through the very limited amount of space. So he just was a little incorrect on that, loses a couple of probes, really not a huge deal. And now DNS no longer has that freebie vision in the main.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Also probably knows that if there is a shield battery, it's tucked very far to the right because it's not near the gas, right? So yeah, a lot of information being given from that gas. A really cool observation. And now DNS with his second Oracle still looking for angles to try and find and catch Harstem off guard. A Harstem that still hasn't dropped shield batteries defensively in his main or natural base expansion. So he has to keep a bunch of Stalkers here and there. And both players are going to be going for a third base now. DNS with a quick Dark Shrine, maybe looking to surprise.
Not going to work out, though. I think Harstem is acknowledging his lack of scouting, and then just that he has opened up the Twilight Council, right? It's awfully tempting to see someone do that and hope that they continue being very greedy, and then they don't get any detection. So it's always on the back of, I guess, the macro Blink Protoss player's mind. So the Robo is here, and it is going to produce 1 observer, which should be good enough if Harstem's planning on staying at home anyways, which so far looks to be the case.
Yeah, that's going to suffice for now. As another observer is now in production, so maybe Harstem can start moving out the first one to get some vision and not get caught from oracles like this. But the oracles are actually extra cautious, and they just go for the revelation and back. Maybe an opening to kill a couple of workers, though the Stalkers were already getting repositioned and they do have blink available. So DNS has to be a little bit careful.
Yeah, sent a DT in, and then there was the Stalkers literally right there. So they already killed one. Harstem's like, nice. I knew it. Harstem was a little later to that forge. I was wondering if he was going to omit it and actually try and attack. Now he got it, put some chronos into it. He will be behind, though. He will be behind. And DNS, with a lot of this scouting, knows how much he can get away with. So he's been happily just really chilling on his side of the map. Maybe even being like overly defensive. A couple of stasis traps that aren't going to be used are going to expire, but I like it. Like, DnS is playing a very safe game. He got into such a tremendous lead last game. He really did. I know it spiraled out of control really, really quickly, but there's no denying that Harstem just didn't know about the carriers, and that is the next stage of PvP. So if you get there first, you're supposed to have, at least some type of advantage, and he just didn't utilize it. So DnS should be, I think, confident in the macro game. And getting there to seem to be one of his top priorities. They both take 4th bases at the goal, definitely signaling to a longer game. Have one person starting up +2. DnS much faster to the upgrade. Actually has it already completed, right? So that makes this battle around Harstem's gold base that much more awkward for Harstem.
And this was really cool. Right? I don't know. It's so difficult because there's no shield battery here. And it's so cool from DnS because he had a pylon here. So he knows that this is an area that he can contest later. And now that the Nexus is going up, I mean, it makes it very difficult for Harstem to overcommit and get in front of that Nexus. And if he's not in front of the Nexus, then the concave can favor DnS. At the same time, Harstem actually with a very forward blink here on the back of those 2 Zealots flanking and tanking a little bit of damage. Harstem is actually going to be able to take the engagement, force another recall. And DnS is gonna have to tuck tail and run, but yeah, I really like that position. Just positionally, I think DnS has the better concave to work with, but Harstem managing to break there with the Zealots, really cool moves.
At the end of the day, Harstem did have faster reinforcements because it was going to be slow warpings from DnS, and then also the reason I was kind of confident the Nexus wasn't going to fall is because DnS had so few stalkers shooting at it. If the map wasn't designed in that way and you had 7 stalkers able to freely shoot on it, I do think it dies. I do think Harstem's too late for the defense.
Ooh.
But saving it's a really important thing. Forcing DnS to retreat, also very important. Harstem now having a 20 supply lead, and the upgrades have also evened out here. 25 seconds till DnS has an upgrade lead. It might be too late in this game.
Yeah, this looks really rough now actually for DnS, as he is just 40 supply behind, 30 supply behind now, lagging. And it is not looking good for his probe count either, as 12 have fallen in this altercation so far. So even if Harstem didn't manage to kill him, which is looking like he might, it is going to be a heavy advantage for the Dutch here. DnS is going to blink on forward, which is a little bit risky. Harstem going to continue to warp in Zealots, as they're going to tank the most damage. DnS is actually going for a DT counterattack, and I do like that because if he can somehow hold, he has the opportunity to do equalizing damage on the other side. Can he hold? That's the difficult part.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not like he can take out Harstem's observer. He doesn't have one of his own, so no emergency DT defense. I think DnS really caught in such an awkward time. He has a Templar Archives, and he could have been making Archons from either Templar, actually. He could have been making Archons, and he probably was going to, but Harstem's counterattack was immediate. So finding himself lower in supply, not able to utilize maybe a possible take advantage, making things much more awkward. But speaking of awkward, Harstem recalling half of his army out, then pushing away with the rest of it, losing the Warp Prism in the process, does take some damage to the DTs. I think that is far more important for DnS that it just pulled Harstem back, though, and he was able to pounce on whatever was left behind.
Yeah, DnS is alive, which is nice, right? It was like 25 stalkers to 11 or something. Now it's 23 to 18. So army-wise, DnS has enough units to actually kind of stabilize now, but Harstem, I think, had a winning position. So he basically says, I don't want you to get it. I don't want to get into a scrappy game, and I'm not 100% sure that I can end, but I think he probably could have ended. Still a very awkward position for DnS. The Immortal here is going to provide a lot of damage if Harstem can manage to shift click onto a few of those stalkers. There is an Archon for the Zealots as well, so complexity in his favor, army in his favor, and most importantly, economy with that gold also in his favor. So Harstem still in a brilliant position, but the game is technically still going, and now with the army of DnS trapped, I think it might just be coming to an end, as Harstem has managed to most likely close the series 2-0. No recall available as well, as it was used earlier.